So it was, probably 6 months ago when I said that I was going to focus more on doing videos about photography than gear. Yeah, it was 6 months ago. Unbelievable. I've had a wedding season since then and things are finally starting to slow down, and I want to do that first video about photography, not gear, and not wedding photography. So in this video, what I want to talk about is, first of all, I'm going out in shortly. As soon as I've done this video, I'm going to take some photos, which I'm going to talk about. I'll come back, put them into Lightroom, we'll look at those photos, we're going to talk about it all. And today is all about, and it's mainly about me. I'm sorry, but it's mainly about me, but hopefully that will help you. It's about me finding a style of photography that I enjoy, that I'm happy with, outside of weddings. It took me probably 3 years of doing weddings before I found my style for weddings. And I haven't yet found a style for my photography outside of weddings. I have a website where I make a few, very few, print sales and that kind of thing. And these were photos taken over the last 7 or 8 years probably. But there's no style. So this video and subsequent ones are going to be about me finding my style, how I go about it, about my journey. And hopefully that will possibly help you in your journey. Now, if you are a dedicated wildlife photographer, you photograph birds, or you're only interested in photographing military aircraft or something like that, then this probably isn't going to help you. But if you've got any desire at all to expand your photography into something else, if you do something else, if you do street photography for instance, then maybe you want to expand that or have a different type, a different style, so you've got two styles, whatever. You might find this video useful. Let me jump in. So over the years, as I say, I've photographed many things. I've photographed sunsets and beaches and intentional camera movement, and I've tried many things, none of which really got me excited, I have to be honest. There's a few photos that I think are probably reasonably good, but nothing that, as I say, defines who I want to be seen as far as a photographer goes. So what I've done over the several years is lots of research. I've looked at other photographers, what work they've done. I've looked at artists, what work they've done, to try and find inspiration, and not to copy anyone, but to use them as inspiration. And I keep coming back to one photographer and one artist. I found this photographer 7 or 8 years ago probably, maybe longer. The artist probably 20 years ago. And I think it's me. I now want to try and emulate the work of the photographer is Saul Leiter. There's just something about his photographs that just resonate with me. They're not street photos. They're taken in New York, but they're not what I would call the modern version of street photography, which I've tried and, to be honest, doesn't do anything for me. His work is a combination of, it's kind of abstract in an urban environment that happens to have people in sometimes. I've sat down over the last couple of weeks, which is why today I'm now going to go and do some photography, and kind of analysed what his photos have in them that appeals to me. And a bit of background very quickly, if you don't know Saul Leiter, he was an artist to start with back in the 40s, I guess. Early 50s he got a camera, started doing photography, and he'd obviously got all that background as an artist, and started taking photos, and very quickly started taking colour photos, which back in the early 50s was pretty unusual. He lived in New York, and I don't know his intimate life history, but as far as I know, he would go out any day of the week. I don't know how often he went out, but he went out and he photographed in the summer, spring, midwinter, snow, and he just took photos that are iconic. We'll have a look at them later when we come back after the shoot and we look at Lightroom, and I'll go through some of his work. The artist is Mark Rothko, who probably about 10 years earlier was a painter, and he did lots of different types of painting, but the one that I really like are his bold, just blobs of colour on rectangular canvas, huge great runs. I've seen one of his original ones in Tate Modern. It's absolutely massive. I don't know what the size is, but you need to hang it on the side of your house, not in the lounge. And it's just different colour rectangles of paint on this canvas. Again, we'll look at that. What I would love to try and do to get my style of photography is to combine those two, to use the colours of Mark Rothko with the aesthetic of Saul Leiter and his technique, his way of going about getting photos. I have a problem. I don't live in New York. New York has got lots of colours, stuff happening all the time, people all the time, and probably you could sit on almost any street corner. I'm just thinking back, I've been to New York and it's busy, 24 hours a day. You can just probably walk to the end of the street, sit down at a cafe and take some photos, and that some of them would be good photos. I live in UK, in Suffolk, in the middle of the countryside. My nearest decent sized town is Bury St Edmunds, which is 15 minutes away. My nearest big towns are Norwich, Cambridge, and so on, which are mostly pretty much an hour or a little bit more away. So for me to do this sort of photography, I need to jump in the car. Today I'm going to jump on the motorbike. It's just easier to park and get where I want to. And I'm going to Newmarket, which it's got one high street, a couple of cafes, a little, tiny little sort of square, not much else going for it, but it's better than where I am now. So I expect my journey to take 20, 40 photo sessions, and this is number one. I don't expect to get this right first time. What I'm going to try and do is use the components that Saul Leiter incorporates into his photos, and let me just mention them. His work has, most of his photos, and they're all different of course, but most of them have layers. There's many different layers to his photograph. He achieves that quite often by doing a reflection or shooting through a window. And many of his shots are, I guess he's sitting in winter in a steamy cafe, and the windows are covered in condensation, and he's shooting through that condensation. And other times it's reflections. So there's different depths. There's lots of depth to his photos. Colours. He seems to find colours that work together. Not always the same colours, but colours that in combination in that photo work really well together. He incorporates people, but they're not the subject of the photo. In fact, another point is that most of his photos don't actually have much of a subject. It's more of an abstract portrayal of that scene at that moment. Whereas kind of street photography is someone walking across a zebra crossing, and as I say, I don't get street photography. His work is much more abstract. Frames, he uses frames a lot, so he's shooting through something to give a frame through which you're looking. And a few other things which I will gradually try and incorporate into the photography that I'm going to be doing. Now you may check out Saul Leiter and think, well, I don't like that at all. But my point is that this technique is one that after several years I've decided it's the only way I'm going to find out what style of photography I like, and how I'm going to do it is to break it down. So find your person that inspires you, that makes you think, yeah, I'd like to get photos like that. Break it down. What is it about the photos that person does that you like? What are the techniques? What lenses? What time of day? What place? And all that kind of stuff. Break it down into parts of the jigsaw. Go out and try and get those parts of the jigsaw. You're not going to do it all on day one. Get some parts of those jigsaws into your photograph, and gradually over time try and build more and more of those parts of the jigsaw into your photography. My only mention of gear today is that I'm going to be using my Z8 with a 40mm f2 lens on. Nothing clever. I'm not using the Z8 for any other reason than it's just a nice camera to use. I like holding it. So I think it's time to say I'm off on my bike. I'll get some photos. I'll be back. We'll look in Lightroom. We'll talk about Saul Leiter. We'll talk about my probably quite pathetic efforts at trying to emulate what he's done, and we'll then keep doing this in future. Hi. Right. Well, that was interesting. It was nice to get out in the sunshine and take some photos other than weddings. I'll talk about what I did shortly, but first of all, as I said earlier, let's look at what I'm trying to emulate. Let's look at Saul Leiter and at Mark Rothko. These two combined are going to be my inspiration for my hopefully successful journey into photographing things other than weddings. As I said earlier, for years and years I've loved Saul Leiter's work, and let's have a quick look at some of his iconic photos, just to show that he worked in some pretty miserable conditions, and there's a few photos that for me stand out. This one here in Paris, I'm actually struggling still to really put my finger on why I love this photo. It's just so, I don't know, it's just so ordinary. I mean, if you took this photo today with a smartphone, it would look complete rubbish. It wouldn't look like a decent photo at all. So I'm not sure what it is about this. I guess it's the colours, it's the muted tones, it's the depth of field, lots of things. But anyway, I love that photo. That's brilliant. This, of course, is one of his most famous photos. And as you can see, this is another one I love. I mentioned earlier about just sitting in a cafe having a coffee with a steamy window and just taking a shot through the window. And different layers. So you've got the window with the condensation on the window. You've got, I wouldn't call the person the subject, because the actual thing in focus is the printing on the window. You've got the van in the background and a house even further away than that. I just love it. It's for me, it just works. As I said earlier, for you this may not work, but find out what does work for you. So these are the sort of photos that I want to go out and try and emulate. Reflection, focused on the actual glass, and the reflection is out of focus, that kind of thing. So this is the kind of thing that I'm going to be working on, and trying somehow to combine the colours of Mark Rothko and the way he combined colours. I think it's just absolutely fabulous how you can produce work like this. This is so simple. But as I say, I've seen one of these, and I forget which one it was, at Tate Modern, and it was huge. I'm not sure what it was. What was it? 15, 20 foot high, 10 foot wide, absolutely ginormous. And it's not until you get up really close to it that you can appreciate the incredible subtleties within each of these apparent just sort of blobs of paint. It's not. There's a huge amount of texture and as I say, subtlety of tones and hues within each of these colour blocks. Now I can't emulate it. Well, I say I can't emulate that in photography. Maybe I can. We'll see. So that's my inspiration. And now don't laugh, please. This is what I took whilst I was out on my shoot. I didn't take many. How many did I get? I only got 18 photos. This was at Newmarket, a very bright sunny afternoon. Not an awful lot to photograph. I was struggling to find anything to photograph, so I'm actually fairly happy with what I did manage to find. And I say it's about practice. I never expected this to work first time. I don't expect this to work in 20 sessions time, but at least I'll be building on some sort of building blocks that hopefully one day my photographs will be something that I'm proud of. So just to very quickly run through them, let's have a look at this one. Reflection in a window with blinds, people walking past. Excuse me. By the way, I did find some interesting things about the actual photography. The Z8, which I mentioned I took with me, fantastic camera, wonderful autofocus, absolutely brilliant at a wedding, utterly useless for doing this photo. It wouldn't focus on what I wanted to. I wanted to focus on these people. Now I was shooting at f8, so the depth of field was huge, so it really didn't matter too much, but the camera, there's no way the camera is going to focus on that person's face walking along between these blinds as a reflection. It just doesn't work. So I did find that for many of these photos I actually switched to manual focus, and for my next photo session I'm actually going to take I'll probably take the Z8 still, but I'm going to put my Nikon pre-AI 55mm 1.2 lens on, proper manual focus lens from 1977 I think it is, because that's much nicer to focus manually. The 40mm f2 Z mount lens is electronic and it's utterly rubbish for a manual focus. It works about 2 seconds behind what you actually move the focus ring. So anyway, I digress. So we've got different layers. We've got no real subject. I missed this. I'm not sure what that was actually. That shouldn't have been in the shot, but I can always crop that out, of course. Moving on to this one. Again, another reflection with a tree branch just hanging down there. So I focused on the tree branch, so everything else is kind of out of focus, again at f8, so it's not ridiculously blurred, but enables us to see what the photo is about. We've got some fairly nice colours going on here actually. I quite like the colours mixed together here, especially as they're out of focus. I think they work quite well. I'm actually not sure about the leaves there, but there we go. Again, it's all practice. I saw someone having their hair done through a shop window. Not sure that works really, but again, layers I was looking for, and I by this time come down to f2, so I wanted just to have these people in focus, but I was hoping that the frame would be a bit out of focus, but I was some distance away, so again, it hasn't worked too well, but we've got some nice colours going on here. We've got a frame, we've got the subject within the frame, so again, it's all about practice. Then I did this because of the colours. I liked the colours of the protective stuff around the scaffolding, with the teal. Not quite a teal and orange look, but I still like the way they work together. And I was debating when I took this what to focus on, and I think I made a mistake, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Making lots and lots of mistakes. The sooner I can make 1,000 mistakes, the sooner I get to get photographs that I really want. I shot that at f
2.5. Should really probably have had that more like f8, so I had a much deeper depth of field, because I can't remember, but it looks like I focused on the car here. Should probably have focused, I don't know, maybe on the tree or the sign up here, but everything would have been reasonably well in focus at f8. This was actually sitting, I stopped for a coffee, and this was inside, looking out through the window, and I just waited a few minutes for someone to come along and actually stop. And she stopped, and I think she was looking at the prices or something outside. I don't like the way I've edited this. In fact, let's do reset, and let's just lift the shadows. Need to do something with the editing, and that's another thing. I need to come up with a preset that I can apply to these photos that I think works. I've got all my wedding presets here. Some of them might work. I've got to go through and experiment and try them out. I can just give you an idea. Maybe this one here, it gives you an idea what that one would look like. My Sigma 40 art lens would look like that, which I think is the one I had on that just now. This one makes it really sharp and crisp and probably a bit too much. This one, light and airy. Now that might be in the right ballpark. But anyway, as I say, over the next few days I'll play around with these photos and come up with a preset, a way of editing these that I think works. And I'll probably end up with 3 or 4 different presets depending on the actual scene, but we'll see how that goes. Right, and I finished off with, as I got back to where I parked my motorbike, we had this little square with some steel structures that were quite interesting. I tried from various different angles. If I photographed it, if I stood over here near the cafe and photographed back this way, there was a really ugly building just behind me here which didn't work. I think from this direction it was the best direction I could get, but I'm still not sure that they really worked very well. I had a lady here with a kid in a pushchair. Just waited for her to actually appear between 2 of these, whatever they are, structures, steel structures. Whether that's an interesting photo, I really don't know. But it's practice. And that, at this point, was all I was after. So whether you like these photos or hate them, really doesn't matter. It's just practice. Hopefully, over the next 10 videos, you'll see a marked improvement in the photos I take. Not least of all because my next journey will be to probably Cambridge or Norwich, both of which have got a huge amount more photo opportunities than Newmarket has. So, if you've got any thoughts, I'll be very interested to hear them. And I'm actually off onto, in a couple of weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, I'm actually going to a street photography workshop. So I want to try and get one more shoot in before that to get at least a little bit more experience of doing my sort of photos. I'm not going to this workshop to get to be able to do contemporary style of street photography, which, as I've said, leaves me cold. It just doesn't do anything for me. But I'm hoping to pick up some tips, techniques, ideas that I can maybe add to the work I'm doing here. I will keep you updated with that. I'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.